Every city tells a story, but most don't speak it out loud. They hum it, under the surface. In the grinding of gears and the flickering of fluorescent lights, in footsteps that don't quite echo right, in the eyes of strangers who don't quite blink. Sometimes a city hides its worst truths in plain view. And somewhere between midterms and microwaved food in the underpaid, overworked stretch of downtown where bikes run faster than dreams, a boy named Billy Covington tried to survive. Billy wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking for tuition, a clean transcript, a full stomach, and what he found was something else entirely. You'll hear a lot of stories on this frequency, stories that walk just outside the lines. Moments where logic goes soft and something behind the wallpaper starts breathing. This is one of them. You're listening to Tilted Frame. Tonight's episode is titled, You Have Nice Flowers.
I didn't go to New York for the lights or the noise or to find myself or whatever people say when they pack up and leave. I went for books, a scholarship, literature. That was the plan. And at first, it worked. NYU, full ride, bright-eyed boy from nowhere with a brain full of Baldwin and Borges, trying to stay afloat in a city that charges for air, but books don't pay rent, and dreams don't do laundry, and even on scholarship, you still have to eat. So I got a job, not a real one. No paperwork, no tax forms, just a delivery gig out of a cramped little Chinese place called Taiwan Palace. Cash in a bag, bikes in the back. Tony, the owner, didn't ask a lot of questions. He handed me a busted e-bike and a crumpled delivery map and said, faster you go, more you make. Don't crash. And I didn't. I flew. They started calling me a Flash Boy, first as a joke, then as a name. I was good at it, better than I should have been, quick with the food, quicker with the smile. The first time I delivered to the old woman, she gave me $15 on a $10 order. Didn't even make eye contact. Just handed me the cash and closed the door. Did it again the next week and the week after that. She became my best customer. Always paid in cash. Never had complaints. Never invited me in. I figured she was lonely or rich or weird. Maybe all three. Meanwhile, I was burning both ends of every candle I could find. Morning classes, lunch deliveries, afternoon lectures, night shifts, rinse, repeat. And things started slipping. First a quiz, then a paper, then a final. I stopped reading. I stopped sleeping. Started forgetting to call my mom. Then came the email. Academic probation, then another scholarship review, and finally, funding revoked. Effective immediately. No scholarship meant no dorm. No dorm meant no roof. And just like that, I was sleeping on subways, showering at the gym, delivering egg rolls with a toothbrush in my pocket. Tony found out and offered me the supply room upstairs. Said I could sleep on the floor, just don't touch the freezer. I didn't argue. It was 4 walls and a lock. And still, the old woman kept ordering. Sometimes twice a week. Her tips never dropped, always exact change plus 5, never a word, never a smile, just the same slow handoff at the door. I told myself it was just work, just money, just survival. But every time I saw her, I felt this pause, like the city got quieter for a second, like the light behind her was too bright for the hallway. Like something wasn't quite where it should be. I should have paid more attention.
I never really talked to Billy, not more than a few words at a time. Here's the order. Be careful on the bike. Stuff like that. I always meant to say more. I always wanted to. But he moved like someone on a mission, always flying through the kitchen like he was late for something that had already started. Even his smile, fast like a spark, bright but gone before you could touch it. My dad liked him. A lot, which was rare. He didn't like most people, said they complained too much, moved too slow, or asked too many questions. But not Billy. He showed up early, stayed late, took every shift, never asked for anything, not even a raise. My dad called him Flash Boy like it was a nickname and a warning. Soft laugh. "Watch your fingers," he'd say. "Flash Boy'll take the whole bag if you blink too slow." It started off almost funny, but then it wasn't. I don't know when exactly it changed. Maybe when I saw him napping in the mop closet between shifts, or when his eyes stopped looking up when he came in. He used to read while he waited for orders. Poetry books, stuff he scribbled in a little notebook, too. Something about becoming a writer after college. "Real stories," he said once, when I finally got brave enough to ask. But the books disappeared first. Then the notebook. Then the breaks. He was just working all the time, sweating through his jacket, hands shaking when he grabbed his delivery slips. Sometimes I think he was taking something. Not a lot, not hard stuff. Just something to keep him going. Maybe it started as caffeine pills. Maybe worse. He never said. But I could tell. There's the kind of look people get when they're always tired but never stop moving. He had that look. Still, my dad let him crash in the back after he lost his dorm. Told him not to tell anyone. I pretended not to notice the folded-up blanket in the dry goods closet or the toothbrush in the sink we weren't supposed to use. And I watched him get faster, watched him get thinner, watched him forget his dreams one delivery at a time.
I wasn't supposed to be there that night. The order was called in right before closing. Big one, too. I almost let someone else take it. But when I saw the address, I grabbed it without thinking. Unit 3A, West 82nd. Margaret Liu. She always ordered on Fridays. This was a Tuesday. Weird, but I went anyway. The hallway smelled like steamed rice and cat litter. I knocked once, twice, no answer. Then I noticed the door was cracked open. Now, look, I've seen things in this city. I've seen people collapse from heat stroke. I've seen guys get mugged while trying to mug someone else. So, yeah, a door slightly ajar in an old building, red flag, but something felt different. Still, like the building was holding its breath. I pushed the door open. Inside was quiet, warmer than it should have been. The kind of heat that clings to your shirt and makes your eyes sting. She was on the floor, not far from the couch, half sitting, half crumpled, one shoe off. She looked up at me, not surprised, not afraid, just annoyed. "Oh," she said. "You again?" I helped her up. She was lighter than I expected, like holding dry leaves in a silk bag. She leaned on me, muttering something about her hip. I got her to the couch and asked if I should call anyone. "Number, just sit," she said. "It's only temporary." I wasn't sure if she meant her injury or her age. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't ask questions. I've learned people don't like them. Eventually, she spoke again. "I suppose I should hire someone," she said. "Someone to stay here, maybe help me keep things tidy. I'm not as spry as I used to be." Her voice was dry, like someone who used to be elegant and decided she didn't owe the world that effort anymore. I didn't say anything, but something in my chest shifted. I pictured it for a second. Sleeping on the couch, making her tea, watering the plants, no rent, no deliveries, no more back doors and cold dumplings, peace, or something like it. Then I looked over at her flowers. They weren't just plants. They were something else. The windowsill was thick with them, orchids shaped like outstretched hands, black veined lilies that seemed to shimmer when you didn't look directly at them, twisting vines that grew into the cracks of the wall like they were searching for something. They moved, not fast, not enough to scare you, but enough that you couldn't quite prove it. And the smell, sweet, but earthy, like wet soil over something once living. They didn't belong there. They didn't belong anywhere, but they were beautiful. I found myself leaning forward. My fingers nearly touched a petal before I stopped. "You have nice flowers," I said. She smiled, eyes half closed. "Yes," she said. "They're loyal. More than people sometimes." There was something in the way she said it. Not bitter, not wistful, just true. My phone buzzed. 4 missed calls, a text from Tony. "Where the hell are you?" "Right. Delivery, work, reality." "I should go," I said, already backing toward the door. "You'll come back," she said. Not a question. Not even hope. Just a simple statement like saying the sun would rise. I didn't answer. I just nodded, stepped outside, and closed the door behind me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt warm.
I don't remember when it changed. Maybe it wasn't a moment. Maybe it was a series of them, quiet and slow, like tea cooling in a forgotten cup. Billy started spending more time at her place, not just dropping off food and running back to the kitchen like he used to. He lingered. Some nights he didn't come straight back. I'd look up from the register, hear the bell on the delivery door jingle, and see that look in his eyes. Not frantic, not empty, just softer. He started picking up her prescriptions on the way to work. I know because I saw the pharmacy bags in his backpack. And once, I watched him carefully portion out pills onto a saucer before grabbing a lunch order like it was just another day. He was watering her plants too. I could smell the dirt on his hands when he came back. Not city dirt, flower dirt, the kind that smells alive. And he talked about them. Not much, but more than before. "They move," he said once, not looking at me. Not really, but kind of. Like they notice you. There was a spark in his voice when he said it, the kind I hadn't heard since the beginning. Since he first showed up with that notebook full of scribbled poems and the confidence of someone who still believed in things. He started laughing again, too. Not big laughs, little ones, muted, but real. And for a moment, just a flicker, I thought maybe he was getting better, that maybe this strange, quiet woman was something good for him, that caring for someone was helping him remember how to care for himself. But then there were the signs, the long stares, the nosebleeds, the hand that trembled too long before picking up a takeout box. His pace didn't slow. It sharpened, tightened. He moved like a string pulled taut. It wasn't just caffeine anymore. I didn't ask. He wouldn't have told me. And through it all, I stayed quiet. I handed him the bags. I watched the backs of his shoes. I listened when he told my dad stories about climbing fire escapes and jumping puddles, and how the orchids in 3A turned toward the door when he walked in. I watched him smile about someone else, and I realized I was falling in love with a man who didn't even see me. Not really. We'd share coffee in the prep room, eat the same stale fortune cookies from the cracked jar. And still, I was invisible. He talked about her like she was something more than a customer. Not romantic, not exactly, but reverent. Like she held a piece of something he'd lost and didn't know how to ask for back. Sometimes I caught myself wondering if she was doing something to him, something strange. But other times, I just thought, maybe she was kind, and maybe that was enough. He looked alive with her, and I hated that it wasn't because of me. I tried to let it go. I told myself it was a phase, a fascination, that he'd tire of it, that he'd look up one day and realize I'd been here the whole time, watching, waiting, willing. But he never did. He just kept going back to her, back to the flowers, back to whatever strange light he thought he saw through that door. And I stayed here, holding the receipt paper, smiling like it didn't hurt.
They say time heals, but that's not true. Time doesn't heal. It just puts dust over the wound, like covering a grave with gravel. You can still feel the shape underneath if you press your foot down hard enough. I was married once, a long time ago. His name was Edward. He worked with numbers. I worked with flowers. We were young, stupid in the best way. We thought hard work would keep death at bay. But it doesn't. Death laughs at hard work. He died in a crash on the FDR Drive. No warning. Just gone. A Tuesday morning like any other. Our sons, Michael and Ellis, were 6 and 9. Michael had a cowlick he could never tame. Ellis liked to put ketchup on plain white rice. One got sick. The other got caught in the undertow off Rockaway Beach, one after the other, like the world was trying to finish the job Edward started. I remember silence more than grief, the kind of silence that wraps itself around your spine and squeezes. For a while, I didn't move, didn't speak, barely ate, and then I planted something. I don't know why. A violet, I think. Tiny, unimpressive, but alive. It didn't fix anything, but it gave me something to wake up for, to water, to keep alive when everything else had died. Eventually, I opened a shop, Lou's Garden, West 81st, right between a tailor and a bakery that never changed its sign. The flowers were just better. I don't know how else to explain it. Word got around. People noticed. We sold to everyone. Politicians, actresses, even that trumpet player. What was his name? Louis something. We did weddings, funerals, fundraisers. I once did all white peonies for a fashion show in Soho. The woman cried. I pretended not to notice. For a time, I was someone. People knew my name. Florists would call and ask how I kept my roses that color, that height, that long. I never told them. And now, it's quiet again. The shop closed 3 years ago. My knees can't do what they used to. The storefront was taken by a dog spa. I live here, alone, in the same unit I moved into after Edward died. Same window, same heat that never turns off, same view of nothing. I have no husband, no children, no nieces or nephews worth remembering, and a bank account full of money no one will inherit. I tried once, leaving it to a foundation, but the paperwork made me tired, and something felt wrong about it. Lately, I've wondered what happens when I'm gone. Will someone find the apartment? Will they wonder about the flowers? Will they notice how long they keep blooming? And now there's this boy, Billy, quiet, but not empty. There's a kind of desperation in him that reminds me of myself. Once. He moves fast, but he sees things. He looks at my orchids like they're trying to tell him a secret. Sometimes I think maybe he could be the one, someone to carry on the shop, the secret, the recipe, you could call it. Though it's more ritual than science, but can I trust him? He works too much, sleeps too little. I know the signs. Whatever he's taking to keep up, it'll burn through him eventually. Still, when he helped me off the floor, I felt something shift, not in my body, in the air, like something decided it wasn't finished with me just yet. You have nice flowers, he said, and for a moment, I believed he meant it.
Billy Covington came to the city with words in his pockets and a scholarship under his arm. He wanted a future built on pages, not plates. But the city asked for more than tuition. It asked for everything, so he ran deliveries, and ran faster and faster, until the books disappeared, until sleep became optional, until ambition started looking like addiction. And yet in the middle of the blur, a pause, a woman, old, quiet, watching. And what passed between them wasn't quite trust. Not yet, but it was something. A recognition, a need answered by a stranger. She saw in him a gentle hand beneath the exhaustion, and he saw in her something steady, maybe even safe. He brought her food, Her pills, his time. She gave him silence, stillness, something close to warmth. And all the while, the flowers bloomed. But what exactly is growing here? A connection? A trap? Is this a boy finding purpose? Or a man walking willingly into something that doesn't quite breathe the way it should? And what will Billy do when kindness starts to look like home? You're listening to Tilted Frame, and the story isn't done yet.
I think I knew I couldn't keep going like that, even before the headaches, before the shaking hands, before I started forgetting what day it was. The truth is, I was using. Not the hard stuff, not at first, just enough to push through. Energy pills, Adderall off a guy I met during orientation, caffeine stacked like bricks on no sleep. Then later, stronger things that made me weightless for a minute before reality slammed back harder. It wasn't a choice. Not really. It was survival. And no one was checking in anymore. Not my professors, not my mom, not even myself. I was hollowed out by momentum. A body in motion, obeying the laws of burnout. Then came Miss Lou. She never asked questions, never judged the bags under my eyes or the tremor in my wrist. She just opened the door, let me inside, and treated me like I wasn't unraveling. Over time, I started staying longer. She'd tell me stories about her flower shop, about celebrities who used to stop by, about the perfect shade of coral pink roses she once bred that no one could replicate. And she believed all of her flowers loved her. She'd hum, and they'd lean toward her voice. They responded to touch like animals. One afternoon, I sat with her on the couch. She handed me a bowl of grapes and asked if I had family in the city. I don't know why, but I cried. Not loud, just quietly, like leaking. She didn't flinch, didn't offer a tissue or an arm. She just looked at me and said, "You remind me of someone." I asked who. She didn't answer right away. "I lost both of my children," she said finally. "Their father, too, all before I was 30. She said it like reading from a page she knew by heart. No tremble, no apology.
There was something heavy behind those words, more than grief, a sort of decision. "Maybe," she said slowly. "You were sent here, a message, a second try, or a gift if I'm lucky." She smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't eerie. It wasn't strange, it was soft. We didn't say anything after that, just drank our tea, let the silence sit between us like a third guest. From that point on, I became something more than a delivery boy. I started taking care of things, her meds, her plants, her groceries. She gave me a small key, said it was for emergencies, but we both knew better. She even taught me how to water the flowers properly. It wasn't just water. There were instructions, mix ratios, vials of powdered something, a few drops of red liquid she kept in a locked drawer. "It has to be exact," she said, "or they get upset." I never asked what was in it. Part of me didn't want to know. I followed her directions, measured to the decimal, whispered to the orchids like she showed me, and the plants flourished. The air in her apartment got thicker, sweeter. Time felt slower inside.
My headaches faded when I sat near them. They made me feel okay, better than okay, like I mattered. But nothing good stays untouched. Not in this city. It happened after a rough night. I'd relapsed. Hard. Someone handed me something in a stairwell. I don't remember their name. I barely remember the hour. Just that my vision was sideways, and the sky was the wrong color. I woke up on her couch. The lights were off. She wasn't home. The watering schedule was taped to the fridge. I tried to follow it. I really did. But my hands, they shook. My eyes couldn't track the numbers right. I poured too much of one powder, maybe skipped a vial. I stirred, I poured, I whispered the words, and something shifted. The orchids twitched, not swayed, twitched. A creeping vine on the bookshelf recoiled as if burned. Within minutes, the colors began to drain, petals curled inwards. The black orchid in the corner let out, and I swear this, a low, sighing sound. By the time she returned, I had already dropped the watering can. My fingers were numb, and the air, it didn't smell like flowers anymore. She let out a primal scream that woke up the entire floor of her building. I had been afraid in the past, but not the fear I had as I looked at her face at that moment.
She walked into the room and froze. Not like shock, like pain, the kind that starts in the chest and climbs your face without asking. The apartment felt different, dead. Like the flowers, colorless, wilted at the edges. One vine had shriveled into the shape of a hand. She didn't say anything. She couldn't. Mouth was open, but no sounds were coming out. She just looked at me, and that was worse. She didn't scream, didn't accuse, didn't ask what I'd done. She didn't have to. That look, it split something open inside me. Not anger, not disappointment. Loss. The kind of look someone gives when their world ends. Again. She sat down on the couch and didn't move. I stood in the doorway like a thief who had stolen the most cherished possessions. I opened my mouth, but the words tasted like dust. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe, maybe. The air was thicker than grief, pain uncorked and flooding the room like smoke. That's when I knew. I wasn't welcome here anymore. Our friendship wilted, and it died with the petals. I packed quickly. Didn't even roll my clothes, shoved everything into a torn delivery bag and zipped it too fast. She never said a word. Not when I walked past her. Not when I paused by the door waiting for something I wouldn't get. Not when I looked back. She just stared at the place where the flowers had once lived, at the graveyard I'd made. They were the last thing she had. It felt like I had killed someone, or maybe just relit a grief she'd spent 40 years trying to bury. I stepped into the hallway, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in months, I felt despair.
It's been 3 months since he came back. No big entrance, no apology. Just showed up at the back door one night with a bag over his shoulder and that same tired look in his eyes. My dad gave him the room upstairs again. No questions asked. Billy didn't talk much at first. He'd nod at me. Maybe say thanks if I handed him something hot. But mostly, he worked in silence. Like someone walking around inside a dream they didn't want to wake up from. But little things started to shift. He stopped sweating through his clothes. His hands steadied. He slept more, and I think he stopped using. Or at least, he's trying. We've settled into something now. Not a romance, not yet, but something soft, comfortable. We eat together in the prep room after closing. He talks about music, old books, what Central Park looks like at night. Sometimes he almost laughs. And still, he's not the same. Not the Billy I watched fly down alleys like he was outrunning gravity. Not the Billy who recited poetry to the friar when he thought no one was listening. Not the Billy who smiled with his whole face. This version is quieter, gentler, but incomplete. I see it when he zones out by the back door, eyes fixed on nothing. I see it in the way he turns every time the delivery phone rings, like part of him still expects to hear her voice on the other end. He misses her. I didn't understand it at first. I thought he'd fallen in love with her, in that strange, tragic way people sometimes do with the wrong person. But I was wrong. It wasn't romantic. It was something else, something older, deeper. It was the kind of connection that grows in silence, the kind a child has with someone who gives without asking. He loved her like a boy who hadn't been taken care of in a long time. And she, for all her strangeness, took care of him. I think she gave him a kind of peace, a purpose, a version of himself that didn't have to run every second just to stay alive. And then he broke it. Not on purpose, not cruelly, just carelessly, like people do with things they don't know how to protect. He hasn't said her name since he came back, but he keeps her keys, carries them in his pocket like a ghost. So last night, when we were closing down, I said it, finally. You should go see her. She might not want to. He replied. She might? I said. People change. Things grow back. He didn't answer, just kept wiping down the counter like the rag held something more important than what I was offering. But I saw the flicker.
A few weeks after Lena had tried to talk me into going to Mrs. Liu's home, I was folding napkins in the back of the restaurant when my phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Liu. The message was short, just a few lines. I've had time to think things over. If you're willing, I'd like you to come by. We can talk. I read it twice, then a third time. I sat there holding the phone like it might vanish if I blinked. I hadn't heard from her in months. Not a whisper, not a sign, just silence and guilt. That unbearable kind that wraps around your chest and stays there no matter how many shifts you work. But now this, a chance. I typed back, hands shaking a little more than I like to admit. I can be there in 15. Then I hit send before I could overthink it. I ran out of the restaurant without telling anyone where I was headed. My feet knew the way before I told them. Past the pharmacy, past the corner where the trash bins always smelled like firecrackers and fish sauce, past the mailbox with the dent no one ever fixed. I wasn't sure what I'd find when I got there. An apology? A goodbye? A second chance? I didn't know. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking towards something instead of away from it. A few weeks had passed since Lena tried to talk me into going back to Mrs. Liu's. I hadn't listened then. I wasn't ready. But today I felt something different. Maybe it was the way the light hit the sidewalk that morning, or the way I caught myself staring at her number in my phone longer than usual. Whatever it was, I found myself outside her door. My hand hovered in the air before I knocked. I hadn't called ahead. I hadn't told Lena. I hadn't told anyone. Part of me was still afraid she wouldn't open the door, that I'd ruined things too badly the last time. But the door opened. And there she was, Mrs. Liu. She looked exactly the same. She looked at me for half a second, and then her face softened. Without a word, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. I hadn't realized how much I missed that. I'm so glad you came, she whispered. She pulled back slightly and smiled at me. Her eyes were glassy. Mine too. Come in, Billy. The apartment hadn't changed. Still filled with quiet elegance. Still humming softly with some energy I couldn't name. We walked into the living room, and she gestured toward the couch. I'll put on some tea. I nodded, sitting down. My legs were still buzzing with nervous energy. But the couch was soft, safe, familiar. She returned a moment later with a tray, delicate cups balanced perfectly, steam rising from the pot. She poured for both of us, her movements smooth, precise. We sipped. We talked. Not about anything big. She asked about the restaurant. I asked if her orchids had bloomed again. She smiled, said yes, they were thriving. We laughed quietly, like we were both afraid to break whatever spell had allowed this reunion. And then it started in my fingers, a heaviness. My thumb couldn't quite hold the handle of the cup. I set it down quickly, afraid I'd drop it. You all right? Mrs. Liu asked, still calm, smirking in a weird way. I think so. I rubbed my arms. Maybe I stood up too fast earlier. But the feeling spread. Legs, stomach, jaw. I can't move, I said. My voice cracked. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering whether she heard me correctly. I can't move, Mrs. Liu. My breath caught. I can see you. I can hear everything. I can feel everything. It's like everything's turned up. I passed out, God knows how long. There was no sound at first, just stillness, and then sensation. I couldn't tell how long I'd been out, a minute, an hour, days. The light filtering through the curtains had shifted, but that meant nothing. My mouth was dry, my throat thick and sticky, and I still couldn't move. But everything else, the world was too much. I could feel the individual fibers of the cushion beneath my cheek. I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioner as it kicked on, the faint creak of the building settling. Then I realized I was still on the floor, same spot, same room. My head was turned toward the corner now, angled just enough to glimpse the edge of the floral pattern on the couch. My arm. It was lying across my stomach, and something was tight around my bicep. A band, the tourniquet. I felt the sharp prick before I saw her. Her voice came from just above me, soft and close, like a mother soothing a child.
You're doing very well.
And then I felt it, the glide of a needle sliding under my skin, the slow, deliberate pull of a syringe drawing blood from my vein. It wasn't rough. She was gentle, precise. There was a rhythm to it, familiar, practiced, routine.
I know you can hear me. In fact, better than before.
She sounded almost proud.
Do you want to know the secret to my beautiful flowers?
She continued, calm as ever.
It's human blood, mixed with vitamins and fertilizer.
I tried to scream, to flinch, to pull away. Nothing.
I discovered it with my husband. He withdrew himself one day and bled into my orchids. They bloomed, so beautiful. But then they wilted. They hungered for more blood, so I gave them his.
A pause.
I killed him.
The words didn't echo, they just settled. She lowered her voice to a near whisper.
I did. But then the blood ran out, and behold, my 2 boys came next.
My breath caught in my chest. The mixture. The red liquid I used to stir into the base before watering her flowers. She always called it her secret tonic. Said it kept them blooming all year. She was still talking now, murmuring. My mind was unraveling, folding in on itself. And still, I couldn't move. No scream. Just listen. Just feel. Just wait. Days must have turned into weeks. I couldn't tell anymore. Time became this endless smear of light and ache. A numbness. I grew weaker. Slower. Fading. Waiting for something, anything to take me away, to wake me up, to make me move, or just let me die. The worst part wasn't the pain. It was the repetition. The way she drew my blood. Agony, over and over, sometimes gently, sometimes not. The way she hummed softly afterward, like it was just another chore, like she was folding laundry or watering plants. She talked to them. The flowers, she talked to them like they were children, like they were listening, and maybe they were. Maybe some strange remnant of her husband and kids remained mixed in the soil, hopeful. But then something changed. I woke up, if you could call it that. My body was slumped in some kind of chair propped up by straps. I couldn't move, but my head lolled slightly as she pushed me forward. We were outside. The air hit me like a lightning bolt. The sun, it didn't just warm me, it charged me. I felt it in my bones, my teeth, the skin behind my ears. It was more than light, it was electricity. I felt alive in a way I never had before, not even during my worst highs, not even when I thought I was free. It was magical. Then I realized something. Maybe this was my chance. Maybe someone would see me, recognize me. Maybe Lena had put up flyers. Maybe her father had gone to the police. Maybe my family had remembered me for long enough to call someone. I imagined my picture on a missing poster taped to a street lamp, flapping in the wind. People passed us on the sidewalk. Lots of them. I looked right into their faces. I made eye contact with a woman walking her dog, a man in a business suit, a teenager holding a coffee. Nothing. No one flinched. No one slowed. No one asked. She hadn't covered me. I know that much. I wasn't draped in a blanket or hidden behind a veil. My eyes were open. My face was visible. I could tell you the street we took, the turns, the number of steps into the subway station. I could describe the posters on the wall, the exact smell in the corridor. And still, dread, no one looked back at me. Not one person. She took me on the train. We sat beside a group of teenagers playing music from a cracked speaker. One of them stared at me for a full 5 seconds, and then turned away, like I wasn't there, like I didn't exist. Eventually we left the subway, walked a few blocks. The sun had dipped lower now, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Then she turned, opened a door. We entered a funeral parlor. Inside the funeral parlor, it was dim and quiet. A few people sat scattered in folding chairs, all facing a cheap-looking casket at the front of the room. I scanned the space, my eyes adjusting slowly. That's when I saw them. Lena, her father, my parents. They were crying. I stared, stunned, tried to process what I was looking at, what I was feeling. I wanted to wave, to shout, to run to them. But I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even blink harder than the body would allow. Then Lena looked up. Her eyes landed on Mrs. Liu. Lena gasped and ran toward her, sobbing. She hugged Mrs. Liu like a savior, clung to her, whispered something I couldn't hear. She wept into her shoulder. And still, she didn't see me. Why didn't she acknowledge me? I was right there. Mrs. Liu gently placed a hand on Lena's back, soothed her like a child, and walked toward the casket, pushing me along in the chair like a caretaker. That's when I saw it. The photograph, next to the coffin, on a tiny wooden easel. My face. Senior year. That stupid tuxedo photo from the yearbook. That smirk I used to think looked cool. My face. Smiling. Lifeless. I went numb. My ears rang. The light in the room felt too bright. My skin dampened with sweat. Anxiety prickling across every inch of my body. Panic. It was my funeral. My own funeral. Mrs. Liu wheeled me forward then, without a word, lifted me gently from the chair and placed me directly on top of the casket. There I lay, unmoving, in front of the few people who had come to mourn me. My family, my friends, and no one could see me. No one knew. Tears rolled down my face. I felt each one like a burn. I wanted to scream, to beg, to let them know I was here, still here, but I couldn't. Then something even worse happened. My mother stood slowly and walked to the front of the room. She was holding a piece of paper. Her hands trembled as she turned to Mrs. Liu. "Thank you," she said softly, brokenly. "Thank you for bringing these beautiful flowers." Then she reached down and picked me up, held me, cradled me. I was in her hands, and she had no idea. She turned to the room to begin my eulogy. I saw my father bury his face in his palms. Lena sat perfectly still, her eyes red, her shoulders trembling. And then she placed me back on the casket. That's when I saw it. My reflection in the mirror behind the altar. Not a boy, not a man, but a plant, green and vibrant. A strange, twisted bouquet of vine stalks and wide, veined leaves. But inside me, my consciousness locked in these stems, these petals, these roots. The only thought that consumed me through the rest of the ceremony, through the ride in the hearse, through the quiet hum of the priest's voice at the graveside: how do I escape? They placed me back on the casket one last time. I felt the wind stir my leaves. The priest's voice was distant, muffled, but something inside me shifted. A whisper, a flicker of movement. I could feel something returning. My voice buried in soil, my breath shallow but present. It was as if my soul had weight again. Then, one by one, my loved ones approached. They stood beside the casket, beside me. They said their goodbyes. Some cried, some just touched the wood. And then, they left. All of them, except her. Mrs. Liu leaned in close, brushed a petal back from what used to be my face.
"Enjoy your trip,"
she whispered. Then she turned and walked away. I heard the mechanism groan, the casket lowering, and I was still on top. No one took me home. No one took me with them. I felt the cold breath of the earth. The first scoop of soil hit me, soft, then heavy, then another, and another. It was all I could feel, all I could see. Dirt filling the sky. The weight pressed down, muffling the world above. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see, but I could feel. And I was still alive, buried, trapped, begging, in silence.
You ever walk past a flower shop and feel something strange? A kind of stillness behind the glass. Like the blooms are watching you, remembering something. Billy was always there, quiet, loyal, willing. The kind of person you don't really notice until he's gone, and even then you might only notice the emptiness he left behind. The clean napkins, the polished tables, the silence. But someone noticed. Someone saw the shape of his longing and decided to water it, not to help him grow, but to make something bloom in his place. Love isn't always a gift. Sometimes it's a grip, and sometimes the warmest smile hides the coldest root. Billy wanted to be seen, but not like this. He wanted to matter, but not like this. He waited too long to speak, trusted too long without question, and when the world finally looked his way, it was already tossing dirt over his grave. So take this as you will. Speak now, before someone silences you. Look closely, before you call it love. And if someone ever offers you a cup of tea, ask what they've been feeding their flowers. This has been Tilted Frame. And remember, it's not quite reality, but it's close enough to make you wonder.